All right, colleagues. We're having a small glitch in terms of sharing the PowerPoint presentation, but we're going to continue to try. I think we need to start now the presentation, the workshop, while we are getting the PowerPoint presentation ready. So basically, what we have seen over the past few years is that the the emergence of AI has led to improvements and changes right within the academic space and the writing space. For example, you'd understand that when ChatGPT was released in 2022, sorry, there was an influx, right, in terms of users of ChatGPT amounting to at least 100 million users in a month, right? And that was the highest number of a consumer platform in the history of technology, right? That has been witnessed. So what happened with those changes is that, or with the advent of such technologies, was that um, institutions or academic institutions, right, as you might want to call them, right, they were found and caught unprepared, right? Because they were caught unprepared, they wanted to preserve what they regard to as academic integrity. And in the process of um, that panic to preserve academic integrity and writing integrity, they then were forced, right, by advertisers, right, to adopt or adapt some technologies that were sold to them, right? And these technologies were sold to them by these advertisers on the guise of saying that your academic integrity is under threat, therefore we need to protect it, right? We shouldn't allow people to do however they want with these technologies. So that process, um, it it got the universities and other institutions in a panic mode, where now what they were supposed to do was to look for tools. They have to look for tools to actually then regulate the use of AI, right? The use of AI within the writing space, right? But now the question is, oh, when we have adopted these tools and technologies, right? What are we doing with them, right? And to what extent are they authentic, or are they going to address the problem that we are facing, right? Which is the problem of overuse, like most would want to regard it as overuse, right? So in that process, what we saw is that at least 42% of students globally were now using that AI platforms, right? And more than 80 countries had already integrated AI tools within the their teaching and learning promises, right? But AI had the promises that it gave to the people and to the institutions, right? The first one was that you get instant results, personalized feedback on student writing, AI chatbots improve outcomes, right? For example, in countries like South Korea, Taiwan, UAE, and South Africa, where it would have students who are struggling with these writing, etc. Right? They had that option to actually improve the way they write and how they do things. Right? So those were the promises of the technologies when they were first presented to us, right? Those are the promises that these technologies offered to us when they first presented. So what happened then is in that process, in that process, the panic university then had to respond, right? But in their respond, what they responded with fear, and in that response with fear, they now began to deploy surveillance tools instead of frameworks, right? That's what we saw around 2022, 2023. Universities actually responded in fear, right? Instead of coming up with frameworks that will allow the the equitable use and the uh, fair use of these technologies, universities were in a panic mode and institutions were in a panic mode, right? So that didn't help much. The panic that the universities were found in, it didn't help much because now we got caught up in the issue of um, what I would like to call as the panopticon, right? I would explain the panopticon. I'm just checking the colleagues from MNG if you are able to show my slide from your end because I'm not, it's still not coming through, right? I've sent it to your email, Tatenda, if you in the studio. Can you please share this PowerPoint for me so that we can proceed? Right. So when that had happened, right, we saw that there were opportunities, there were harms, and there were problems that were associated with this whole change, right, that AI is brought into place. But remember, I've mentioned that the institutions of higher learning were caught unprepared, right, because no amount of research or no amount of anticipatory governance had anticipated that these technologies were coming, even though they were warned before that technology will come to a point where an individual would be able to generate text, right? The warnings were there, but they were highly ignored, right, for one reason or the other, right? So the greatest opportunity that then was that AI supplemented limited academic writing support structures, right? That was the first opportunity. Then in distance education then was able to expand, right, via AI tools. For example, your UNISA in South Africa, your open learning in Zimbabwe and Ghana, right? Those were augmented by the use of AI tools, right? But now, what the problem now was the issue of the digital divide, right? It also came into place where you have premium AI model or tools, right, that you have, and this subscription now, they are inaccessible to many, specifically within the African context, right? Within the African context, where but the largest population is somewhat rural, right? In that regard, right? So what now? What do we see then? What we see is that um, what we see is that the issue of bandwidth limitation in rural Africa restricts then AI access. Then the digital poverty compounds existing inequalities in learning. Then there's free AI tools that introduce detectable text, right? Then there's also the issue of detector harm, right? Where now the models that were brought in, right, to detect what the students are using or what researchers are using, now were Western trained. They were trained on Western data or English data, right? And now this is a process in a process, right, where you're an African multilingual student, then you are systematically disadvantaged or overflagged, right? Right, colleagues, can I please ask that we resolve the technical issue that we have, then we proceed. My apologies for that, because we seem to be not able to connect our PowerPoint presentation, and it's very important what we want to share on there. Apologies, just give me few seconds. It seems like we are coming right. Let's just have a full screen view here. Then we should be fine, right? Thank you. All right, thank you so much. Right, I think we are on, right? Please just confirm for me if we are on. Yes, thank you.
Yes, we are on.
All right, thank you so much. Right, so basically what I was saying is that the rise of AI in higher education, right? It came with promises, right? But there was a hype of AI, right? When ChatGPT was released in 2022, it got a monthly ChatGPT user subscription of 100 million users, right? And 42% student is 42% student 42 student globally students use AI for academic writing tasks, right? And 80 countries integration of AI in higher education system, right? It was welcome and there was progress there, right? But now we're saying that they were promises, right? For instance, is instant personalization and feedback on student writing. The AI chatbot improve outcomes in South Korea, Taiwan, UAE, and South Africa, because now a lot of number people of students can now use can improve their writing, with these tools, right? So, but the panic, like I've mentioned, that universities responded with fear, right? Deploying surveillance tools instead of frameworks, right? So the integration now between the global north and the global south, right? Looking at Africa, you'd see that it brought some opportunities, some of which I've already mentioned, right? The opportunity of supplementing limited academic writing support, and but also it brought the issue of the digital divide, where premium AI tools now require subscription, right? Whereas, most users from disadvantaged communities would only use what I want to regard to as free options, right? And these free options in that nature, they couldn't level the playing field between those who have and those who have not, right? So what we now see is the digital poverty, right, compounds existing inequalities in learning, where free AI tools now produce, right, in that process, when you're using a free AI tools, they are more detectable on AI detectors, right? So imagine in a university where we have students who can afford these tools, right? The students who can afford these tools, the subscription models, and we have the other one who doesn't afford the subscription models. The one who is using an advanced and subscribed model, right, can circumvent the AI detection, whereas the one who has a free model will be detected, right? But both have also used AI to write their assignments, right? So what happens at the detection is that the one who is used the one that's subscribed will surpass the detection, right? So what we have is the detected harm, right, where models trained on Western English patterns, the disadvantaged African multilingual students systematically where they're overflagged, right? So detecting tools now, what they do is they deepen inequality rather than they protecting integrity within that space, right? So what we witnessed is that what I want to call the integrity panic, right? And how demand for detectors were manufactured, right? So I would say here's the political economy of the AI detectors, right? They arose as a result of a market need, right, within the marketplace of AI detectors, right? So what happened there is that ChatGPT was launched now in 2022, and we see 100 million users in 60 days. Then now from there we have media. Then the media amplifies the crisis, right? The cheating crisis. What they did is was to say, guys, look, what is happening here is that if you don't regulate, if you don't come up with mitigation measures, what's going to happen is that the academic integrity is going to be eroded, right? It's going to be eroded, right? Or that there is quite a lot of things that are happening in the background. Apologies, right? So what we saw was that the ChatGPT was released in 2022. Then we have 100 million users in 60 days, right? Then the media amplifies the cheating crisis, right? They say, right, if we don't come up with ways, now this was presented to institutions and universities to say academic integrity is under threat, right? If we don't come up with ways to regulate and to mitigate the use of AI, right, we're going to have loss of academic integrity, and we're going to have unethical use, and we're going to have over reliance, right? That was the media that was amplifying the whole crisis, the cheating crisis. But what was the problem was that there was no evidence based that was cited that AI would lead to the fall of academic integrity, right? But that's what the crisis was manufactured, right? So university then they panicked, and they begin to ban AI. I remember when I was at DUT in 2022 and 2023, the response when I introduced AI tools, ChatGPT and other platforms, was the eyes were popping, right? The eyes were popping, and the quality and other committees were had to sit down and regard AI use as plagiarism. And still today, right, we have universities who still have those who do not have standalone policies, right? They actually regard AI use as overuse as plagiarism, which we have proved that it's not, right? So universities panicked and they banned AI, they rushed, and the policies were inconsistent, they were not well thought, right? Everything was haphazard, right. Then now what happened in that mix of panicking, the vendors exploited the fear. Then you come with your Tenitin, right? Tenitin that predated AI, right, was already there and not designed to detect AI, right? They exploited that platform, that fear that had already been created, right? That had already been manufactured. Then we have GTP zero, right? We have copy leaks, right? All these now they found that actually there is a fear. Then they begin to sprout a lot of AI detection platforms that they are there and selling them to universities. And what we know is that the developers of an open AI, they had an AI detection tool that they actually discarded in 2023, right? Because they've seen that it was too inaccurate. But disregarding the fact that the ones who have generated or were created the most leading AI platforms in the world, they actually see that these detection tools will not work on their platforms. Universities and institutions still proceeded to adopt AI detection tools, but the flags already been given by OpenAI to say, hold on our platforms that we are using, right, the generative AI platforms, these tools will not work, right? But what we saw was that universities continued to use them, academics continue to use them on students continue to be penalized, right? So what we see is that we saw what we regard as the false premise. AI use amount to academic misconduct, right? That's what the AI detection tools were created for, to say the moment you use AI, therefore it means academic misconduct. So by us as institutions and universities continuing to use these things, we actually are propagating this premise, which is a false premise, to say using AI to brainstorm, to edit, or improve language is not inherently dishonest. Yet these detection tools treat every AI interaction as cheating, right? They do not have intelligence. They do not track whether the source of the information, whether the information was handwritten or AI generated. What they track is that they track the sequence of words, right? We're gonna get to this. So this confliction drive policies that punish learners, and what we see is that learners are being punished for using, right, AI, even whether they used it ethically, whether they use it to edit their work, right? The detection tools cannot pick that up. They cannot pick that up, right? So we're saying that's a false premise to begin with, right? There's also the evidence gap where no peer-reviewed evidence actually demonstrate that AI detection meaningfully reduces academic dishonesty, right? We don't have evidence, right? For a study by Walters that tested 16 tools and found none of them reliable. Yet universities invest millions in these contracts annually, and they're making so much money out of universities because they have long-term contracts. But what we see on the ground and studies that have been done, they've proved that over most of them, they are not reliable. They cannot be trusted, right? So this ushers us into the political economy of AI detection tools. So what we need to ask ourselves is who benefits, right, with these tools, and who benefits and who walks away with a smile on their face when there is an AI detection tools has been signed in by the university, has been signed. So the first beneficiary is the vendor, the Tenitin, the GTP Zitero, because they are benefiting from a multi-year contract, a subscription revenue model that they've been given, right? So, but in terms of whether the university is benefiting because the university wants to maintain academic integrity and judgment and human judgment, what we see is that students and educators are harmed and are not helped in the process of using the AI detection tools, right? Number one is that the vendors, the GTPD, Zotero, the Just Done It, the Qbot, and other platforms, and Turnitin, they claim 99% accuracy, right? But this accuracy that they claim has not been peer reviewed. Nobody has really sat down and say, guys, let's actually look at what Turnitin is doing, and if Turnitin is accurate, right? Everything that we do is we've used Turnitin for many years, right? And therefore, because we've been relying on Turnitin, then let's plug in Turnitin there. And what is sickening the most is that student work gets submitted on Turnitin, right? And the student doesn't get the report of what has been picked up as AI detection, right? So that they can defend themselves. So detection accuracy gaps are commercially suppressed. There is no audit requirements that exist. We cannot audit that report, right? We cannot audit to say, look, where this detection or where this is highlighted, it is actually what I've written using my own hands. I didn't use AI to write this sentence, this paragraph that is detected. So student writing that is submitted to third-party servers raises issues of POPIA, raises issues of data concern, data privacy concern, right? So OpenAI's classifier, like I've already said, it was already discarded for poor accuracy. Then why then should we continue to use these AI detection tools, right? Turnitin accuracy dropped 42% after adversarial techniques. What I mean by this is that when we test Turnitin, right, when we change variables on Turnitin, right, with the studies that were done, they actually reviewed that its accuracy changes, right? When we paraphrase work, when we change terms, right, we see that the accuracy of Turnitin actually reduces by 42%, right? So there's an incentive misalignment, right, where revenue depends on finding AI use, not an accuracy. So what I'm saying is that these detection tools, they are dependent on finding AI use, not on accuracy, not on establishing whether the work was used, drawing on the student actually generating the work or the work being generated by the AI platforms, right? So let's for a minute describe and try to understand how these AI tools work and how the architecture fails, right? So here is the flow of how it is done, right? So the student's work is submitted, is fed to an AI detection tools, right? Right. So how the platform work is that it does feature this extraction, right? It works on perplexity, it works on burstiness and token probability, right? So by perplexity, we're saying it predicts text, right? Text is predictable. AI generated text is predictable, but so is native English writing, technical writing, right? So what they do is that they predict to say the sequence of words in this sentence or in this paragraph, they are similar to what AI has generated before or on the data that has been trained before. And burstiness, when we say the detector trained on ChatGPT 2 or 3 output fell on ChatGPT 4, right? So we're saying we are measuring the construction of sentences, right? And we are measuring how fluent you are, not so whether you have written it on your own or you've written it using ChatGPT. That's what not these detectors are doing. They are looking at how your text is structured and how long your sentences are, and they're looking at the kind of words that are there. You are using underscored, you are using complex words, right? Then you are automatically detected to have been using AI tools, right? So what we see now is that the prediction is that the classification model or transformer or logistic regression predicts AI probability, looking at if you have a huge number of text that are trained on the data or on the platform is being trained, what happens is that they pick you up, right? Right. What we see is that the score output will be as of 87% likely AI generated, but it's not explained how we have gotten to that point, right? And what we see is that action of academic misconduct is then taken on a student, and the student is therefore punished for using these AI tools. But whether it is accurate or not, it is not tested. I know for a fact, so far I've dealt with two UNISA students, University of South Africa students, right? The one was suspended, and they're really having a tough time, suspended for a year. Then there's another one that I mentioned last week. We still need to, they were actually suspended, right, for a 2018 report that suggested that they used 39% of their work was AI generated, right? They were suspended, they were given a suspension, but they were given a chance to actually appeal. So we are busy with the appeal to see how best can we appeal. Right. So we have a what we call the false positive crisis, right? Where we are accusing the innocent. And this is what is happening in most local universities, right? Where we see 61%, 61.3% of non-native English essays that have been submitted in the United States of America, they were flagged as AI generated. Why? Because the platforms, they actually detect your work, right? Because you are not an English speaker or first language English writer, right? So we have 0% false positive rate for native English speakers. Those who are English speaking and native English speakers, their work doesn't get detected for AI. So what we have are real false positive that accusing the innocent. A second year biology student can submit a lab report, and English is their third language, right? Turnitin flags 87%, and academic misconduct hearing is then initiated. The student, there's no way to prove they wrote it, right? There is no room for them to prove because we are stuck on a detection report, right? The outcome is stressed, the student is stressed, their academic record is damaged, and then there's loss of trust. And all this is based on statistical guess and probabilities, right? The student cannot come and say they don't have that platform, they don't have a counter to that would say, look, oh, this is what I've done with my work. So because I've done this, right, I want to fight against this because I know I didn't copy and paste all this way from the AI platforms, right? There is a what we call the RAID benchmark findings that were done by a study by Dagen in 2024, right, where they tested 12 detectors, right, and 11 models, right, where they took 6 million text, right, and on open source detectors, and all of them they fall flat, right? All of them, they proved that they had 100%, right? They were detecting work that was not AI generated to be AI generated, right? And it increased, the detection decreased by how the work is being edited over the time. So most detectors were inoperable at low false positive rate, right? Where their accuracy collapses below 1% false positive target. And detectors trained on one model, they actually fail completely on the other. What do I mean? I'm saying in this study that was done, if a detector was trained on ChatGPT 2, right, when ChatGPT 3 was introduced, they were not able to actually pick or detect AI. They would say this work is human written. So as a result, what we are trying to solve, we are actually not solving, right? So what we see now is bias. These are biases, the language privilege, and the two-tier system. What we see is that Chinese essays, right? Chinese essays, they were 61% detection rate, right? And the American essays were for grade 8 essays, right? They fall on 3%. But even if they were human or AI written, if they were human written, right, they were not detected, right? But the Chinese essays, right, the essays that were written in by Chinese students without using any platforms, right, the moment they were edited using vocabulary enhancement tools, right, the percentage then fell to 12%. So what we see is the bias reviewed, right? So detectors now penalize limited vocabulary, not AI authorship. 97.8 of non-native essays were flagged by at least one detector, right? Enhancing vocabulary with ChatGPT actually reduces false positives from 61% to 12%, right? So what we see is that the technical, the English language, and the neurodivergent writing all mimic AI statistic patterns, right? So GPT could level the playing field, but detectors prevent this, right? So what we see is that there is a bias in who is being detected and who is being penalized or punished by these tools, right? So we are found, or we are caught up in what we call the arms race, a war institutions we will never win. This war in universities will never win, because when we look at the tables and the graphs on the screen, we're saying detectors accuracy before and versus evasion techniques, right? So we're saying we're not winning because students, they can evade detection, right? So when a student is detection is at 40%, right? When a student includes spelling errors in their work, right, the detection percentage falls by 13% to 13%, right? When a student increases burstiness, right, the detection reduces to 16%. When a student paraphrases their work using deeper, right, a platform called deeper, deeper, whatever they call it, the detection percentage falls to 18%, right? When you decrease complexity on your work, for example, this is where you see a student who has written their work using ChatGPT. What they go and do, they go and put errors in that work, right? They put mistakes in that work. It actually reduces the false positive by 21%, right? And when a student writes an essay, an NSA, right, you see that when we're referring to non-native English essays, right, you see, colleagues, I can hear my voice. I think there's somebody who is their mic open, right? So what we see is that they we are not winning the war using detection tools, right? Because the more we bring in these detection tools, right, students will come up with ways to evade these detections. And when they evade these detections, right, we are not teaching them to improve academic intellectual capacities or competencies. What we are actually preparing for them is we are preparing them to circumvent detection and fight adversarial techniques and come up with adversarial techniques, right? A study by Krishna in 2023 that was built an LB 11B parameter paraphaser model, that is diaper, that I've already mentioned. It shows that the detection fell from 70.3% to 4.6% when you use deeper, right? And AI text still detectable via semantic retrieval defense, right? And human false positive rate maintained with retrieval defense. What are we saying? We're saying when you use platforms like Deeper, right? On AI generated text, right, your percentage would fall to 4.3%. But the irony is that you didn't write the work yourself. What you're simply doing is that you are using another detection platform to improve that work, right? So, colleagues, let's talk a bit about the Foucault's panopticon concept. And I love the concept, the surveillance concept, because with detection tools, what we're simply doing is we are giving the impression of surveillance, right? So according to Michael Foucault, he stresses that the mere possibility of being watched produce self-regulation compliance. And students who know their writing is can't begin to self-censor. They avoid risk-taking and focusing on passing the detector rather than developing their thinking, and can't argue that individuals must be treated as ends in themselves, not means of surveillance. So what are we saying? We're saying what research shows is that detection, they are not working. They create an atmosphere of presumption of guilty. You are already guilty because you've used the tool, right? Students then become anxious. It increases anxiety among students, right? And decreases the levels of intellectual innovativeness, and then trust between students and instructors then is eroded, and the faculty shift from mentoring students to policing. So this is what we have seen increasingly amongst universities and faculties and departments. We have university colleagues and lecturers and supervisors who are now sitting on a click button of detecting students' work instead of mentoring students on how to use ethically and being innovative in using these tools, right? They are sitting on detection. And I know for a fact that there are colleagues, senior colleagues, despite their university policies that say AI tools must be used, and despite scraping AI detection tools, they still continue to upload students' work on these platforms. And if you want to put them on the scale of ethical use of AI platforms, they are more unethical than the students who are using these tools, and they are stuck, and which is sad, in their traditional way of doing things. And the relationship between becomes adversarial between the student and the supervisor. It is not developmental in any way, right? Because we are stuck in traditional. We have a student who started their work, right, by using AI tools in 2022, right? When they were introduced to academic writing, the first introduction was to use ChatGPT, and the supervisor is pushing the student into the kind of writing and thinking and doing things that the student has not been exposed to at a university level. And that relation between becomes adversarial and not developmental, right? We're saying we need to shift from being surveyors, from being compliance driven, to being developmental and progressive in how we use AI tools. Right, and we have also seen the legal due process risk where accusation without evidence. We have seen students being punished and penalized without evidence, right? Just because there is a report that says you have 39% AI use, there is no ground for truth. A probabilistic score cannot constitute evidence, because we are saying the detection is based on probabilities. It cannot be cross-examined. It's trained data that cannot be disclosed, right? We're saying when you using just done, when you using 1018, and what you seeing, what you use doing is that this platform is trained on the data that you yourself as a supervisor, you do not have access to verify if this data is authentic, right? And then students have no mechanism to challenge the algorithm. So does the researcher, so does the colleague that has been penalized or that is facing stigma for using or for over reliance on AI tools. So what we see is that student writing that is submitted to these third-party servers raises serious data protection concern under all laws, whether in Europe, in US, in Africa, and university may be liable for data breaches. And it is time now that we have students, we have researchers and academics who actually rise and say, the platforms upon which my work was submitted is flawed, is unproductive, and it has limitations, and me being penalized for using these tools by this report that is coming from this platform,
I need regress. I need to challenge this outcome. I think this is the time. So, due process failure, academic misconduct hearings based on black box. So, I call this platform black box scores. They violate basic principle of fairness. They do not know what fairness is, because they just are tools that they house a huge sum amount of data. They are not intelligent. They are not conscious, right? They do not have emotions. They do not have judgment. They are based on probabilities. They are algorithms, right? No ability to examine the evidence or the algorithm. They don't give the student or the researcher that platform. So we have a disproportionate impact where false accusation disproportionately harm students from disadvantaged places, and these consequences have life altering consequences based on probabilistic guesses. And I want to report to re-emphasize and re-emphasize that the outcomes from AI detection tools is based on probabilistic guesses. It is not 100% truth. They are picking up numbers. They are guessing to say, if these numbers or if these words are in this sentence, chances are very high that this work has been used or generated using AI. So we are opposed to the use of detectors in any sort of disciplinary or punitive context. And recent research has proved that AI detectors should not be used in terms of disciplinary hearings or punitive context, because already they are not reliable. They are based their outcomes on guess, right? When we're looking at the issue of equity, digital poverty, and the detection penalty, it further supports the argument that these tools, they should not be used. The detection penalty hits hardest those who are already most disadvantaged. What do I mean by that? I mean that inverting the stated purpose of academic integrity. What do I mean by that is that let's look at who detectors actually catch, right? If we can establish from research, and the research by Liang that was done in 2023 and the one by Deg and also and by Gire, they further support these arguments. They prove that wealthy students who have subscribed tools, right, they don't get detected, right? And non-native English speaking students, they get detected, right, more than the ones that do not have the tools. And lower income student tools, they get detected, right? And work that is correctly detected AI that is genuine, it still gets detected at 15%. So what we're seeing is that the inequality matrix suggests that wealthy students, they have access to paid humanizers and they evade detection, and the students who are not speaking English falsely get flagged for writing styles, not AI use. And disabled students, assistive use of they are penalized, and rural students with less bandwidth, they use free tools and they produce detectable text, they get penalized. So colleagues, in a nutshell, we're saying the matrix of inequality suggests that when we are using AI detection tools, we actually subjecting our students specifically within the African context. And it's said to say that most of our students, they do not have access to these tools that can be subscribed, and they are at the mercy of university disciplinary hearings. They are being penalized. They are struggling with university fees. They are struggling with their backgrounds, and the little opportunity that they have to level themselves and equal themselves with those students who are well to do, they get penalized. So the divide still continues. We have our students are sitting at home because they are penalized. They used free chat GPT. The student who has subscribed ChatGPT, who has subscribed humanizers, they are evading these disciplinary hearings and they are progressing. But the question is, when they progress, are they progressing based on the fairness of the process and procedures, or it is an unequal disciplinary hearing or procedures that they're exposed to? And as a result, these AI detection tools are not helping the cause, right? And those who want to push the decolonial argument, right, sitting on these boards, sitting on these disciplinary hearings, what do you think? Do you think we need to decolonize these platforms, or do you think AI exacerbating this decolonial gap, the colonial gap, right? So, what let's understand what these detectors don't measure. Number one, these detectors um they measure statistical patterns in text, right? They measure token probability distribution, right? They are how words are distributed in the text. They measure sentence length variation. If your sentence is too long, it gets picked up. They measure a single artifact at one moment, right? Right. And what we require in the learning process, we require critical engagement with ideas. We don't require how long your paragraph is. We don't require how long your sentence is. Not to say those things are not important. We don't require token probability to measure academic integrity. We don't require sentence length to measure academic integrity, right? We don't require a single artifact to measure academic integrity. So we're saying the AI detection tools, they measure the wrong things. They measure the things that do not have anything to do with ethical academic use. They don't measure anything to do with human judgment. They don't measure anything with responsible use of academic. They don't measure anything to do with transparency. They don't measure anything to do with the source of the information that we are trying to upload on these platforms. They don't measure iterative thinking and revisions that the student has done. They don't measure the development of personal voice. They don't measure the developmental process that the student has gone through. What we simply seeing is the measurement of saying, even in the said to say, I interact with a lot of students. They say my supervisor discarded my work to have been written with AI because she said or he said my sentences are too long. My commas, there's a lot of commas in my work, right? This student doesn't know how to do punctuation. There's a student who knows how to do punctuation. They created the same text using the same platform, but they went on to do punctuation. But then for they evade the student, the supervisors might hand of punitive approach, right? So is the supervisor actually doing justice to the learning process of the students, right? We're saying the key is not better detectors. It is defining the parameters of ethical AI use in academic work. And we know, and research has proved, that these detectors, they are not measuring the right things. Right, so I'm going to push this argument also to say the approach that universities are taking, or supervisors are taking, or senior colleagues, I want to emphasize senior colleagues, because research has proved that they are the ones who are on the forefront uploading students' work, because they are not equipped with the necessary competencies to detect whether AI has been used or not. They are relying on just done. We are saying that when the university's role is to create students that are ready for the job market or for the industry, and the job industry is demanding the out graduate who is ready to use these tools, and on the other hand the university is penalizing the use or the development of the competencies that the market is looking for, then what we see, we're seeing a disconnect between what the graduate is being equipped for and what the market is being is looking for. So we're saying we are restricting AI, and restricting AI creates unprepared graduates, right? Because of the ego of the senior academic, because of the ego of the lecturer, of the supervisor who is supervising a student. They don't want AI to be used. I want to refer to the University of KwaZulu-Natal AI regulative. I love what it says. It says if the supervisor of the lecturer thinks that AI should not be used in their module, the responsibility and the burden lies on them to provide pedagogical reasoning and pedagogical justice and grounding why that AI technology should be used, right? That's a good way. But what we have also seen is that because the lecturer does not have the pedagogical reasoning, what they do is that they revert to the power dynamics metrics that they have. Because they're in the position of the power, they simply discard the student's work, right? Disregarding the process that the student has gone through in developing this kind of work. So what we see is that because the student is constantly anxious, the student is constantly in a fear of being detected, right? Their intellectual innovative capacities that we would later need in the industry, they are being downplayed and they are not being nurtured, right? We're saying AI is a standard in every profession now, in legal research, in contract drafting, in case analysis, right? In medicine, clinical summaries, diagnostic assistance, in literature reviews, in code generation, in documentation, technical writing, in copy creation, in search engine optimization strategies, in campaign planning, in research, in fact checking, in first draft generation. AI is the way to go. If the university bans it in doing these things, then it is creating a student, a graduate who is not ready for the industry, right? What banning now then does, that AI is inherently dishonest. It's a fallacy, right? Not a professional tool, right? That AI is inherently dishonest, right? So we're saying how to evade detection tools, not how to use AI ethically, right? That's what AI detection tools are, and that's what banning does. That the university and workplace norms are completely disconnected. So we're saying we need to AI literacy in the 21st century. We need not literacy only, but we need competencies, right? And this is what the university should teach, that they should prepare their students to do, right? Let's look at the pedagogical alternative. What options that the university has, right? We need to look at the process-based and authentic assessments, right? We need to go back to oral offense, defense, and viva, right? We're saying students, they need to explain and defend their work life. AI cannot substitute for this, right? It directly assesses understanding. Then the process statement. Students, they need to briefly explain how they complete their work, including any AI use. We need to normalize transparency. Research has shown that if a student is given a chance to document the process of doing their work, right, they will become confident in disclosing how they've done it. But if you want to detect and to check them, we're actually reducing them, right? In class supervision, right, we need to do in class supervised writing. When high stake authenticity is required, supervised writing remains valid and equitable. We need to do iterative draft portfolio, multi draft with instructor feedback, review genuine student development. A student needs to submit from first draft to the improved draft to the final draft. And we need to do project-based assessment where unique data sets, local context, or novel problems that AI cannot simplify, solve without dominant knowledge. We need to do self-reflection tasks where we encourage metacognitive journaling, asking students to evaluate their own learning processes and building critical thinking, right? We need to advance the issue of transparency, citation, and responsible AI integration. We need to define what AI is used appropriate for each task type. We need clear communication between supervisors and university. We need clear written policies that are accessible to all, that are communicated to the students, that are reminded to the students. We need to cite AI, APA, Chicago, and citation standards for transparency disclosure. We need to teach our students to demonstrate responsible AI use in the class. Don't just prohibit it, right? We need to assess, we need to evaluate thinking and process, not just the final test. I always argue that we need to move away as supervisors and academics from waiting for the final text. If you're waiting for the final text these days, I'm telling you, you're going to get a polished work, right? But whether that polished work stands the thorough academic rigor is another question. So we're saying use of use of generative AI for writing processes is viewed as as more acceptable when it is fulfilling a supportive role focused on idea generation and organization, rather than when leveraged as an automatic writing completion tool. Right. So what are we saying? We're saying AI will be better used, right? And its outcomes and results will be better fulfilling if that tool is used, right? Not as a automatic writing for the purpose of completing tasks, right? But as a process of idea generation and organization of thoughts and ideas, rather than us just using it to submit for the purpose of submitting a submission, right? So what I'm advocating is that universities, they need to train educators, and this is very important, right? Because most of the problems that we face these problems because the problem is many instructors and educators and supervisors have never used AI tools themselves, right? They've never used AI tools themselves in their training and in their writing and whatever they do. And now, what we are giving them the AI detection tools, right? To now detect student work without a deep understanding of what these generative AI tools do, how they function, and how they get to the output. And that information knowledge is very important for academics. And I advocate that each and every academic lecturer, supervisor, they need to retrain, they need to reskill to develop these competencies. You need to know what algorithm bias are. You need to know what probabilities are. You need to know what burstiness is. You need to know what the sequencing of words are in terms of AI. We need to know how to verify AI text without using these platforms so that we maintain the aspect of human judgment that has already been delegated to the AI platforms. And here's my argument. Universities are allowed and academics are allowed at saying we need to maintain human judgment. We don't need to delegate judgment and critical thinking to AI platforms. But we've already seen and research has already proved that when you reach a decision of penalizing a student for using AI, using an AI platform, you've already delegated human judgment, 100% of it, to those platforms. So the one who has used AI detection tools is actually more guilty of delegating their judgment and over reliance more than the one who has gone through the process of development or development of their work. So we're seeing inconsistent enforcement based on personal technical comfort, right? If we see students are being penalized based on what the supervisor is comfortable of using. My supervisor said they prefer using Just Done. I know a student that I had to assist, right, in terms of preparing a report. Their supervisor said, I don't care what platforms you've used to detect your AI tools, to detect your work, right? Because the student did their work right? Then they uploaded their work on Grammarly and Grammarly and Qbot, and the result was zero. And the supervisor said, I prefer using Just Done. And this supervisor, I want to say, this supervisor is actually guilty. He's guilty of two things. He's guilty, number one, of uploading the students' work in terms of POPIA, right? Of uploading the students' work without the student consent on a platform that the university did not sanction, right? But they are stuck in their tech comfort. And the senior colleague is stuck. When the student tries to push back, then the supervisor begin to pull some strings, begin to pull some power. And these are the dynamic we see. And the result and the heart of the problem is that the supervisor is not trained. And instructors who avoid AI cannot or assess AI use. If there is a supervisor who doesn't like using AI, that supervisor is not well equipped to and should not be allowed to upload anyone's work on AI, because they don't have the competencies, they don't have the know-how of how these platforms work. So no shared standard for what acceptable AI use looks like. And this is where the problem is, because we are penalizing students and academics based on ad hoc platforms. And I want to stress, most of these platforms, they are not even sanctioned by the universities, because universities have discarded Turnitin, right? And you as an academic, as a colleague, you go and bring in something that you found in the streets for free. Then you want to bring it to determine the fate of somebody's life, right? And you go on and around and you say, oh, students are using AI, but you yourself, you're not looking at yourself. You are not prepared. You are not trained. The platform that you're using is not accredited. The platform that you're using is trained on data that is not compatible with the writing style of students in the global south. Then you want to use that as a benchmark to penalize and determine another child's fate, right? And on top of that, you are breaching Data Privacy Act. Right. So what we are saying is that we need to apply use AI with disciplinary content as a thinking scaffolding. We need to develop students' capacity to critically evaluate AI outputs. If we are confident enough that we have trained our students to evaluate and to verify student work, we won't be troubled. We won't be ready prepared to upload their work on those platforms. So we need to collaborate and work with AI to enhance, not to replace human intellectual contribution. So we're saying effective AI integration requires technological, pedagogical knowledge, not just technical familiarity, but principled understanding of how AI tools interact with learning objectives, right? What the evidence says. Briefly, I'm saying a convergent case against detectors, right? These are scholars, these are studies that are actually there that I'll share, that you might need to go and read and look at them, right? A study by Duggins reviewed that detectors fail under adversarial conditions, right? When there are new models that are coming and sampling variations, right, are opposed to punitive use, right? These detectors fail. When you bring in an advanced model, they fail, right? And 61.3% false positive rate for non-English speakers, right? I've already showed that a study by Pekin said 17.4 average accuracy drops after adversarial techniques. No detector reaches reliability threshold for punitive use, right? This study is very telling. It says amongst all the 20 platforms that were used, none of them, right, reached the reliability threshold for it to be allowed to be used as a punitive technique. And the study by Walter, it says that used on open source detectors, it tested 16 AI detectors, and none of them was reliable enough for high-stake academic integrity decisions, right? In another study by Chaka in South Africa, that tried 30 detectors tested in South African higher education. The bulk were not fit for educational deployment. They were not ready. They couldn't be used, right? This study showed that we should not even attempt to use them, right? So another study by Gire reviewed that comprehensive synthesis. It says AI detectors are flawed. They are biased and should not be used for punitive ways. And they are trust-based framework. We need trust-based framework. So we're saying the evidence is not ambiguous. It is overwhelmingly and conversion across research context, discipline, and contagion. And the argument that I'm pushing is that these detection tools are flawed, they are biased, and they should be discarded in their current form until we get to a point where we have trust-based frameworks. And I want to re-emphasize that they are pedagogically unproductive. They are backward looking. They are not moving us forward, these detection tools, and they should be discarded in their current form, right? So we're saying universities have various options, and each and every options have implications, right? The part A will be detection based model, right? The advantage is you appear to be doing something like we are doing. Universities and academics want to be proved to be protecting their academic integrity, so they want to appear to be doing something now. But what is happening is that there are vendor supporting availability, but the risk is that we have high positive and false and biases. We are locked up in an arms race with no winners. Students are evading this. We are not winning the war. Then we are promoting the culture of surveillance culture that damages trust between students and academics. We have students learn evasion, right? And we are making these tech companies more richer, right? Because when we have a new model, they're going to develop a new model, then we need to subscribe. But there's also path B and option B for universities, the integration and transparent model, right? In this model, what we have, we build genuinely AI literacy. We prepare students for careers. We align with professional norms. We support equity and inclusion, but the risk is that we require faculty training. We need to retrain everybody, and policy development is needed. And this is the recommended approach, which I regard to as the integration and transparent model. We have the Part C, the hybrid AI assessment scale. The advantage is that Perkins also has reviewed this in their study. They clearly states expected AI use per task. The flexible but context and course varies, but the risk is that they require institutional commitment. Again, it will create the issue of running after students and monitoring students, and we have inconsistency that is not systemized and synthesized. It is promising, but for now we recommend the integration and transparency based model. Right. In conclusion, colleagues, what we're saying, we need to recommitting to human-centered education. Right. We need a collaboration between AI tools and humans. Right. We say we technically we have unreliable tools, right? The AI detection tools are very unreliable technically. They have false positives, the adversarial invasion, the model obsolescence, they fall flat, right? In high stakes works, ethically they are biased, right? They systematically harm non-native speakers and disadvantaged groups. So when we're talking about ethical use of AI, I want us as academics to be genuine to ourselves, not to only speak about the issue of ethics when we're looking at students generated work, but we also need to look at our ethics when we are using these detection tools. It's also ethical because they have biases, right? Well, let's look at pedagogically. They are harmful. They teach evasion. They promote cheating, right? Because when a student knows that they're going to be detected, they're going to humanize with another platform, there is not ethics, right? There is surveillance, there is not learning there in that process, right? Students is working on evading those platforms. Commercially, they are conflicted, right? They are profit driven, vendor incentive misaligned with accuracy or student welfare. The designers of this platform, they are not looking at human judgment, they're not looking at ethics, they're just looking at picking up of sequences of number of words. So I'm saying discard AI tools in their current form, right? We need to build trust. We need to design authentic assessments. We need to teach AI literacy and competencies. We need to restore the human relationship at the heart of education. That's what we need to do. Not to be punishing students, not to be a surveillance academic space, not to create anxieties amongst our students so that they're always afraid. We are afraid to use AI tools. We are afraid to to explore the fundamentals, the affordances of this platform, just because there is a tool that we know that is going to detect. Colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, we have come to the presentation, to the end of our presentation today. I hope we have enjoyed. If you have questions or concerns, this is the time now for us to engage at a higher level, hearing and exchanging ideas to hear what you think. But my argument remains that in their current form, AI detection tools must be discarded, and the universities that are punishing students using these detection tools in and in themselves are unethically using AI, and they're using unreliable tools, and they are conflicted, and they need to rethink their approaches. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for taking time to attend the Saturday edition, which is the last edition for the month of May. We continue in May, we continue in June until the end of the year. Colleagues, let's open the floor for everybody who wants to bring in their sixth sense in this discussion, and let's exchange ideas and see how best we can be better prepared for the use of AI. I open up to the floor to our colleagues. Thank you very much. We are now taking questions if you have any. Yes, there is Taba. You can go ahead.
Good morning, colleagues. Good morning, Dr. Muringa. You say you are taking question. Mine is not a question. I don't know if it will become a question at the end, but it's a comment or a concern.
Yes.
Dr. Muringa, and I think it's everybody on the platform.
Yes.
We are teaching in the university spaces that really are not what are not looking into the bigger future. They are still reluctant, stagnant in a way, because as I'm speaking now, I was never received any specific training that maybe which needed me to, focus for a week or two, except bringing individuals for an hour and two. Maybe, yeah, for those who were trained, I think there are those who are working directly with technology, like those who are in the learning spaces, student learning management spaces, and so and so. And as I want to reflect now, is that even AI is not being taught in the writing centers. It is still something which is, our students do not know about AI, except that they just maneuver and navigate the space by themselves. There is no way or no time in place where university is saying this is how we do it, either through the videos or maybe put them together as part of training. Secondly, the lecturers. I'm a lecturer at university. I'm coming to this space because for the first time I feel I'm being trained. Yeah, maybe you need to give us certificate at the end of this training.
Right. I'm working on that. I think by December we should be offering courses, right? That's
Yes.
courses. So we'll be offering those short courses for AI training. So that's in the pipeline. We're actually working on it. So we've
Okay, doctor. Yes, thank you very much. Yes, I was just mentioning it because in the real sense of a word, I'm coming to, a block. I call it a block because every Saturday I have opportunity to be taught on how to go about navigate the space of the AI. In my class, I don't know what the other lecturers are doing. In our university, we are teaching common modules. And I taught my student from this project we are doing. Before that, I was just using it as I wanted. But then I had opportunity to teach my student in the research module how to make prompts, how to clean up what they have written, and develop the woman judgment. But I think I don't have enough time to do it. But then if the whole university can make it a project, and then in our classes, 1 hour class, we build on what the university is doing, we will be moving. So what I'm saying is that we really need AI type of framework that which is adopted by university, and we run with it, and we run very fast because already we are in, but we are not sure whether we are coming in or we are going out. Other institutions, other communities are far, far ahead. They are developing the real technologies when we are still struggling with the use of the technology. Thank you very much for this platform.
All
You
right,
are really doing great job. Thank you.
thank you. Thank you. That was really well said. Yes, I don't know what to say, but I'm flattered that we're making that impact, right, in terms of how this AI should be done, right? I think we need something for free, right? That's open AI. I subscribe to the open AI philosophy to say some things should be given for free, right? Like these sessions, right? So yeah, thank you so much. The issue of the unpreparedness of the lecturer, of the 21st of the university lecturer in the age of AI, right? Maybe that's a paper that's coming there, the unpreparedness of the university lecturer in the age of AI and agentic AI. Right. Thank you so much, Taba, for those insights. Let's hear others. Colleagues, any comments before we call it a day? Any comments? Colleagues? Colleagues, any comments? All right. It doesn't seem
Can I
like.
come in?
Yes, sure, sure.
Huh?
Yes,
Am
you
I
can.
talking?
Yes, we can hear you. Hello. All right. Okay. Thank you so much. Right. I'm gonna on the count of 5. Then we call it a day.
Hello.
Yeah.
Yes, I was trying to make my mic open, then I
Okay.
had a problem.
Okay. Go for
You
it.
know, today you were right in the engineering part of the AI. The terminology used and the stories which was here, it was deep. You have taken us into a very deep ends of the AI or technological engineering spaces. However, that is a space which we must know before we become very superficial in what we are doing. So yeah, I'm saying we cannot maybe have too much of the comments because
Yeah.
that's truth.
All right. Yes.
All right.
No, I get you. Thank you so much. Right. That's very true. So you see these competencies. I mean, this knowledge. Um, it's knowledge that everybody should know. If you are to assess a student with in the age of AI, right? So it as we go, right, you're going to come to terms to the party in terms of understanding how these things works. But thank you so much for attending. I think we've come to the end. Thank you so much, the CUT group led by Dr. Taba. Thank you so much for your consistency and persistence in attending this. We need this platform to grow so that we're gonna invite more professors. So in sooner or later, right, starting in June, we're going to be having guys who are our senior academics from other universities joining us here so that we can actually make impact in terms of people who are responsible for policy. I see there's Anita Creel. Anita, you want to say something?
No, I think it's an absolutely amazing initiative that you have going at the moment. So I teach at a private university, and we've been working around the AI issues as well with our students, and we busy implementing sort of new policies where flagging for AI use may no longer just be based on things like Turnitin, where we're having to actually find real evidence, which, as you noted, it's quite difficult sometimes, but it's also so that we're not that we're not disadvantaging students, because many students do use AI platforms like Grammarly and so forth, because they may not be first language English speakers. So I'm finding your presentations absolutely amazing. And I'm so looking forward to short courses, and I hope that they will also be CPD accredited for those of us that are registered with the Health Professions Council, but yeah, also just as an academic, I really look forward to these sessions. I don't always make them because my son does sport, but I try to make them as often as I can. So thank you so much. This is such a valuable space.
All right, thank you so much. That gives us some lot of comfort and motivation. All right, so yes, I think this marks the end of our presentation. Let's meet next week, same time and same place, as we talk all things AI, right? Getting ourselves ready to face the challenges ahead of us, but not cowering, but still continuing finding ways, solving problems that in higher education and academia. Thank you so much. Enjoy the rest of the weekend. Bye-bye. Yeah,
Bye
bye. Thank
bye.
you.
Thank you very much.
Siyabonga. Bye bye.
Bye.
Bye.